The following true crime story contains scenes and descriptions of extreme violence that may be disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised. All she wanted was attention, but when she walked out of that bar, she walked into the hands of her killer. A simple couple's night out ends in blood, sexual assault, and murder. As a school teacher meets her end in the hands of a vicious assassin masquerading as a regular club attendee. What really happened that cold night? Before we continue, take a second to subscribe to this channel and turn on notifications. It helps us bring you the absolute best and rarest true crime stories. Nicole Vander Heyden, a 31-year-old school teacher, was a mother of 3. She had 2 kids from her previous marriage and 1 from her current relationship with her boyfriend, Doug Dietrich, age 35. They all lived in the same apartment. Her kids were Michaela, age 10, Tyler, age 9, and 6-month-old Dylan. The family had lived in Brown County, near Green Bay, Wisconsin, for years and had never experienced anything unusual until that fateful day. On May 21, 2016, Doug made a phone call to the Brown County Police Station to report Nicole missing after a night out with friends. The couple had gone out together that night, but during the events of the evening, something happened. The couple had a misunderstanding, one that ended with Nicole going solo, but at the end of the night, she was never seen again. Doug went home alone, assuming she had decided to stay at a friend's place that night. But why did Doug wait till noon to report the case to the police? Here's what really happened. On May 20th, 2016, the couple went out with a few friends to a bar popularly known as the Watering Hole. It was one of those rare occasions, as both had kids to care for and usually didn't have the time to party. With the help of a babysitter, they had a few hours to kill. They attended a concert where the Steel Panthers performed live. Douglas and his friend Greg got carried away talking to a female acquaintance who was also an old school friend. The trio soon left the bar and were nowhere in sight. Soon enough, Nicole got bored, so she and her friends decided to make their way to a different bar called the Sardine Can. Video footage of the bar showed Nicole dancing and having fun at the Sardine Can, completely unaware that her night was about to take a different turn. Throughout the night, Nicole exchanged text messages with Douglas and visibly grew agitated over time. It was clear that all was not well. Nicole had accused Doug of a few things, such as being unfaithful and abusive. These would later become important clues in the investigation when the police became involved. Douglas had tried to assure her that they would meet up with her at the Sardine Can, but Nicole's patience was running out. Here's where things deteriorated. At around 11 p.m., Nicole called Doug on the phone. He didn't pick up the call, but the moment one of her other friends, Angela, tried to reach him, he picked up the call immediately and reassured them that he would soon show up. Nicole was furious. She picked up her things and immediately left the bar. One of their friends, Aaron, quickly chased after her to try and calm her down. He suggested driving her back home, but she was very upset and refused to return to the bar or be driven home. She became hysterical, screaming and cursing while walking away. She was on a phone call with Doug when she took her leave. She walked across the street and took a turn, and that was the last time anyone saw her. Doug and Greg arrived at the Sardine Can at around 1 a.m., long after Nicole had left. That space of time left people wondering what he could have been doing with his friend Greg. Interestingly, Doug didn't seem very worried. He and Greg drove around the area to see if they could find her and bring her back, but they had no luck, so they returned to the Sardine Can. Doug stayed with his friends and had a few more drinks until around 2:15 a.m., then decided to leave. When he returned home, just 30 minutes later, she wasn't there. Greg and Doug both tried to reach her, but her phone was unavailable. This was when they began to think about her safety. Why wasn't she home before Doug? Where did she spend the night? Doug somehow remained calm through the whole process. Looking back at all the infuriating texts that Nicole had sent him that night, it was evident that the couple was having a heated argument. And according to Greg's testimony, Doug had tried his absolute best to get Nicole to stay in the Sardine Can and wait for him. He asked her not to do anything foolish, but Nicole was drunk and visibly angry. On May 21st, at around 4:30 p.m., Nicole still hadn't come home, so Doug decided to call the police. Little did he know that just across town, another horrible event had unfolded. 2 young boys had discovered the body of a woman in the woods. At first, they thought it was a big animal, perhaps a deer, but curiosity made them look closer. It was human, naked, female. The body only had a sock on one foot and a concert bracelet on the left arm. The body was immediately identified by the police as Nicole Vander Heyden. She had been sexually abused in the most horrific manner and murdered. One significant clue was a large shoe print on the naked back of the deceased. She had numerous bruises on her body and was said to have died of asphyxiation and blunt force trauma. Her face had been beaten and disfigured to the extent that she was completely unrecognizable. That evening, at around 5 p.m., a team of police officers arrived at Doug's residence for some questioning. Doug reportedly looked a bit hungover and had been drinking, possibly to calm his nerves because of Nicole's mysterious disappearance. There were no physical scratch marks or unexplained injuries that might indicate that he was involved in a recent struggle. The cops decided not to tell him about the body that was found. They interviewed him strictly based on his complaint and what had happened that night. He identified what Nicole had worn that night and even agreed to allow the cops to go through the private phone messages between him and Nicole. It appeared that the birth of Dylan had put a strain on the relationship and had made things somewhat rigid between the couple. Nicole had been battling some depression, and it would often surface in their arguments. Shortly after the police had gone, Doug was informed that a body had been found and that his presence was needed at the Brown County Police Station. When he arrived, he recounted the events of that night and other similar events where Nicole had behaved in a similar way. She would often go into fits of rage whenever she had a bit too much to drink on a night out, and Doug would have to calm her down each time. While the questions were ongoing, Doug began to feel uneasy. He only wanted to confirm that the body was not Nicole. The police finally told Doug what he had been waiting to hear all day. The body was Nicole. She was gone. The mother of 3 kids was dead. Doug was visibly shaken and even cried in the interrogation room. The police then went on to ask for a DNA sample from Doug to assist with the investigation. He was treated as a suspect until proven otherwise. For Doug, things were about to get a whole lot worse. The police found a conversation on Doug's phone with his mom, where he says that he was thinking about leaving Nicole and the kids when the house was sold. Nicole's mom also told the police that Doug had a drug problem and would take Nicole out at night and return very late. She also said Nicole confided in her that Doug once hit her during an argument, which was unconfirmed. But that wasn't all. Doug's ex-girlfriend testified against him in court, revealing that he had placed a tracking software on her phone when they were dating and stalked her sometimes. After the relationship ended, he found it difficult to move on and kept sending her messages on social media, even when he started dating Nicole. It didn't end there. The police revealed Doug's search history, and it showed that he had frequented escort websites around his area just days before the death of Nicole. While the police searched Doug and Nicole's residence, a neighbor drew their attention to patches of blood on the sidewalk and on the lawn. He also showed them a charging cord he had found on the lawn, which had strings of blonde hair and some blood clots. It was concluded that this was the weapon used to strangle the victim. One of the most damning pieces of evidence found in Doug and Nicole's home was a pair of Air Jordan shoes that had some dried blood on them. The shoe print was also similar to the stomp print on Nicole's back. As the police returned to the field where Nicole had been found, her torn clothes, at least what remained of them, were found on the side of the road leading to the fields. At this point, there was enough evidence to arrest Doug. On May 23rd, Doug was taken into custody. All that remained was substantial DNA evidence tying Doug directly to the crime. Interestingly, Doug's DNA was never found on any of the materials. What they found instead, especially on the charging cord, made the case even more complicated. Another DNA profile was discovered, one that belonged to someone else. So, who was this person? Could it be that the police had the wrong man? As tests were ongoing, it seemed that nothing else could be done on the case until real physical evidence was found. Soon enough, more test results came out, and this time, the results were more shocking. A sample taken from Nicole's socks was a positive match. A man named George Stephen Birch, who was new in Green Bay, but originally from Virginia. When the police looked him up, his name came up as a suspect in a stolen SUV and a hit-and-run case, a crime he was never charged with. During his interrogation at that time, he gave the police access to his phone data. The information was cloned and stored in the police database. That information would soon serve a life-changing purpose. The 6'7" man had all the markings of a killer. He had numerous clashes with the law, from murder charges and heroin possession to larceny. He was even declared a fugitive for failing to show up in court. This was partly the reason why he was in Green Bay in the first place, hoping to lay low for a period of time, until the murder. Since the police had all the vital information they needed to track Birch, they simply collected all the data on his recent cell phone activities and locations. It was discovered that on the same night when Nicole was killed, Birch was at a bar called Richard Cranium's, not too far from the Sardine Can. He left the bar at exactly 2 a.m. His next location was at Nicole's residence. He was there for at least an hour before the data showed him moving towards the fields where Nicole's body was dumped. He got to the location at around 4 a.m. and followed the route where Nicole's torn clothes were discovered. Following the same route, he returned to his residence at 4:22 a.m. and remained there. The police had all the evidence they needed to make the arrest. The very next day, George was arrested and charged with first-degree intentional homicide. Furthermore, the search history on his phone showed that he had been following updates on the Nicole Vander Heyden case. It seemed that Doug was about to be let off the hook, but things were about to get a lot darker. George pleaded not guilty in court for the murder of Nicole Vander Heyden. He even implicated Douglas in his story, painting him as the predator and architect of the crime, while he was just a victim. According to George's story, he met Nicole after he left the bar. They had a small conversation just outside, and he offered to take her home. He said she gave him directions to her house, but when they got there, the babysitter was home with the kids, and since they wanted a bit of privacy, they stayed in the car. He recounted having a sexual encounter with Nicole in his car that night with her consent, but during the act, he lost all memory of what happened next. According to George, he was attacked from behind and woke up on the cold ground to find Doug standing over his body and pointing a gun at him just outside the truck. At that time, Doug had already killed Nicole. He then claimed that he was forced at gunpoint to drive Nicole's body to the fields and dispose of it. He said that while Doug was busy moving the body in his fields, he got his chance to escape, so he shoved Doug aside and ran back to his truck. While driving back home, he noticed that some of Nicole's clothing was still in his car, so he threw them out of the window. While this story opened up a whole different chapter, it still didn't explain why only his DNA was found in every location. The cord used to strangle Nicole also belonged to George. Doug's biggest stroke of luck was a simple bracelet, a Fitbit bracelet that Nicole got for him to monitor his daily steps and heart rate. This small fitness technology not only records the number of steps taken, but also the heart rate of the person wearing the device, as well as the date. The data obtained from the fitness device showed only 12 steps at the time when some serious walking was supposed to be going on, and the heart rate was perfectly normal for a guy who was allegedly committing multiple crimes on the same night. The prosecutor argued that while George did pick up Nicole from the bar under the guise of taking her home, she turned him down at the last minute, refusing to have sex with him. Birch, who couldn't take rejections, became violent, attacked her, and forcefully raped Nicole in his car before strangling her to death with a cord. He then proceeded to take her to the fields to dispose of her body. The judge and jury had to make a decision. Was this a crime of love, perpetrated by an angry lover, or was it a case of a dangerous criminal who simply found a vulnerable victim to destroy? After 3 hours of deliberation, the decision was made. George was found guilty and sentenced to life imprisonment without parole for first-degree intentional homicide. George, desperate to reduce his sentence, appealed in 2021. He claimed that his privacy rights, according to the Fourth Amendment, were infringed upon when the police went through his phone data for the Nicole case without his authorization. He had provided the data to the police for a previous case regarding the SUV theft and claimed that they had no authorization to use his information for this case. Birch also challenged the accuracy of the information from the wrist device Doug wore. At the end of the day, his appeal was rejected, and he was sent back to serve his sentence. Doug Dietrich was exonerated and was free to live his life without the stain of murder on his name. But he soon found himself in more serious trouble with the law. The following year, Nicole's sister, who had stayed back with the family to take care of the kids, alleged that Doug had touched her inappropriately while they were driving home one night from a birthday party. She rejected his advances. He became furious, locked the car doors, and accelerated the car in a way that seemed suicidal. He pleaded guilty to the charges of domestic violence, endangering the lives of others, and other misdemeanors. He was detained and later fined. The death of Nicole was a heavy blow to the family. As they tried to pick up the pieces of their lives, they took solace in the fact that the killer would never see the outside of a prison wall. In 2018, the family received $269,000 in compensation from the most unexpected person, George Birch. As part of Birch's sentence, He was unable to receive any form of profit from either books or movies made about the murder and his role in it. All proceeds were to be sent to Doug's family. Imagine if Birch's DNA was never found, and Doug was the only suspect. Let us know what you would have done in this situation. If you would like to dive into other shocking true crime stories, check out the videos on your screen.